check if we go live. We're live now. People. Oh, man. Where's Godox Global? Oh yeah, I think we're live now.
Yeah,
Cool.
nice. Perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah, let me just share on my Facebook. Yeah, perfect. Let me just share on my Facebook.
Yeah, nice,
All right.
nice.
Good morning. I think probably in Europe, and good afternoon and good evening for my Aussie friends. Welcome to the Godox talk, global educations. Today we are going to have a fantastic. We are interviewing this fantastic photographer Volodya, who does this amazing extreme action photographies. I love his work, especially the way he's using foreground, how to frame the subjects with a clear negative space, and of course his off-camera flash to make the people really stand out. Smaller people stand out from the background, which is beautiful. Without any further ado, I'll leave the talk to him because he has lots of amazing work to share with us, and he's also going to discuss this high-speed sync, right? I think it's a very
Yeah.
controversial topic because lots of portrait photographer will be, oh man, you're going to lose so much power and it's very hard to control. And why don't you just use ND lens? I think it's all about perspective, isn't it? Like different methods work for different genres. And
Yes,
here,
yes.
Volodya is going to share his perspective and how HSS helps him to define his unique style. I will leave this with him, and let's welcome Volodya.
So, yeah, thank you, Aris. Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Volodya. I am action and adventure sports photographer. So, today, let's have a small conversation about flashes, like specifically about high-speed sync mode. Um, the most important thing, like in action photography, it's very often when we use high-speed mode. So let's start from the beginning. Yeah, usually there are three standard factors affecting our exposure. Yeah, we all know them. It's aperture, it's ISO, and it's shutter speed. Oh, I have a little bonus. I don't know, on camera, if you will now see on the camera, on my web camera, you can see this aperture, like here. It's aperture from Sony lens. I think it's 50 millimeters, but it like works like that. Yeah, cool thing to play. So yeah. As I said, we have three standard factors affecting our exposure. It's aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. We all know this because learned this from start of our photography experience. So if one of these factor will change, another one need to be changed to keep exposure correctly. Yeah, I think these basics kind of know everyone. Let's turn to the next slide. But when we're doing flash photography, they're a little bit different because when you start to work with flashes, they're a little change. Now, shutter speed doesn't really count, but it's only while we're in normal flash mode. It's important thing, yeah? I'm not talking about high-speed sync mode. I'm talking only about normal mode, yeah? So in normal flash mode, shutter speed doesn't count. So with flash, there are four factors affecting our exposure. It's the same aperture and ISO, yeah, we all know that. And the new now factors is distance and power of your flash. So two things from our camera, it's, as I said, ISO and aperture, and two things from our flash, it's distance and power. And even in detailed flash mode, we only control ISO and aperture. Therefore, we need to use flash exposure compensation to affect our detail flash exposure. Yeah, so In TTL mode, we also use only aperture and ISO. Shutter doesn't count in normal speed sync mode. So as I said, when we are shooting with flash, shutter speed doesn't really count, but of course there are some deep technical details that we will now discuss, and we'll try to explain. I will try to explain you in the simplest way. I'm not like person who knows every single technical thing, like, and I can't precisely tell all numbers and other physical or construction things. I will just try to explain the possible easiest way how to understand how high-speed sync works, and will share my experience in photography with you. So yeah, let's go to third slide. So yeah, here's a standard scheme. Please keep in mind that we're always talking about high-speed sync usage in action and extreme sports, yeah, where athletes are moving really fast. It's important. It's a little bit different conditions compared when we're shooting portraits, when model can stay still and another still subjects or objects. So shutter has two curtains that opens and close, yeah, at speed slower than 250 of a second. Sometimes it's 320, it depends on your camera. The first curtain opens and stays open while second curtain doesn't even move. So that's the moment when the whole sensor of your camera is opened and the entire frame is exposed, as you can see on presentation. Since flash is an instantaneous burst of light to thousandth of a second, we need to sync open shutter with this flash burst. So this light from the flash will expose the whole frame. You can see icon on the third picture with when flash is working, yeah? And this is only moment when in these conditions flash working, like only in third picture, not in first, on second, only third. That's for slower speeds, and exactly that's why I said that usually shutter speed doesn't affect on your exposure while we're using flash in normal mode. That's because often before 250 shutter speed, the whole sensor is opened, and anyway you will have this burst of light on your sensor. So yeah, but there is some serious issues in sports photography when we're doing that. So as you can see, because of slow shutter, we can't took fast moving things sharp. As we can see on the example, athlete limbs are very blurry because of very fast movement. There are rare situations where I'm shooting moving with shutter around 250, as I said, and without high-speed sync mode. I will show these examples later, but those conditions are really rare. For now, I just want to show you the main problem of sports photography and high-speed sync. It's if you're shooting at 250, it's motion blur of moving subjects and objects, whatever. So let's try to set up shorter timing of shutter without high-speed sync mode, and let's see what happens. So yeah, here's the second scenario, and as we can see, at shutter speed faster than 250 of a second, the first curtain of the shutter opens, and before it can completely open, the second curtain starts to follow behind and close. This means that there's no time that the sensor opened for light all at once. Like it's never opened fully, yeah? A small opening is traveling across the sensor, exposing as it goes. So I want to say that a higher shutter speeds. One moment. Yeah, the higher shutter speeds never leaves fully open sensor. So that's why we have issues with blackout in photography when shooting, of course, actions. So here's example of blackout effect. So we finally fixed motion blur problem, but now part of the photo is black. Yeah, especially these effects will appear very visible while we're shooting in dark environment or at night. And the more higher shutter will be, the stronger blackout effect we will have. And at this moment, we have only one solution: activate high-speed shooting mode. But before explaining next step, sorry, I want to show you one interesting benefit of this blackout effect. So on the next slide, there is kind of interesting situation. Yeah, Aris, could you please move our avatars a little bit? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So once while I was shooting reportage of site-link competition, I tried one thing and it worked really well. Of course, this effect you can gain now through Photoshop, and it's absolutely not unique in our days, but just want to share this kind of experience in my photography life. So it works well, really good with reflection when you need to highlight reflection with flash, but the main subject leave a silhouette without flash on it. Yeah. So here you can see that on the bottom of the frame, athlete is highlighted with the flash, but on the top, no. Uh, I gained this result using advantage of high shutter speed without high-speed sync mode. Potentially, you can experiment and create something interesting with this, especially using reflection like here in the puddle, on or in the mirror or in the glass, whatever. It's absolutely not the best example of photography what I am showing you now, but just saw how you can turn photography technical issues into advantages, some kind of interesting way.
A
So
quick question, Volodya. How do
yeah,
you, what trigger would you use to achieve this kind of result? Because I think
trigger.
yeah.
Yeah. It's X Pro for Sony. I will show you now. Here it is. Yeah, this one, small.
So you basically disable high speed sync, and then you will receive that kind of
Uh,
result.
it was kind of interesting situation because I just forget to turn on high-speed sync mode, and it left me in that result. Yeah, and later I was just thinking like, hey, it might be a cool feature. Like you can half a frame live in Flash and half a frame live without Flash, and it can bring us to some interesting ideas in the future, of course. So yeah, you can turn back our on full screen presentation for people to see. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we're finally here. Now I will try to explain you how exactly high-speed sync mode works. So the way how HSS solves high shutter blackout problem is that it starts firing the strobe in pulses as the first curtain opens, and it continues to pulse until after the second curtain closes. Yeah. So this pulsing is happening so fast that the sensor perceives this as continuous light. So now, as that slit moves across camera sensor, your flash now exposes for the entire frame correctly, and it's very important. So technically, it's quite simple, yeah, but for me, it's very impressive. Just imagine how fast this whole setup works. Uh, Thousandths of a second, our eye can see just like a micro flash. Uh, our phones sometimes can't even film this flash burst, because they're super fast. So yeah, technically, this realization is amazing because it's like several micro flashes as one huge flash. Yeah,
I heard another maestro of mine saying that
yeah,
he made a user analogy of when you do high speed sync, the flash burst multiple shots. So it almost, you can think of it works like a continuous slide. Would you agree or disagree?
Like sensor of the camera see this flash as continuous light. Yeah, that's why technically this setup works because our camera see like it's not only one burst of flash, it's like and it thinks like, oh, it's continuous light. Yeah, so it writes image on the camera without blackouts. So yeah, let's just compare both options side by side. Yeah. Also, on the diagram, you can see all things. It's really important to understand that because we can see on the top that the middle of exposure flash bursts once and on a full power when the frame is fully opened. Yeah, when athlete perform a trick, frame is opened. It's like when shutter speed is 250 or under that. Yeah, and flash only one time pops, and that's all. But it pops on a full power. Yeah, if you can set up your flash with full power. So, but on the bottom setup, we can see like flash bursts a lot of time during the whole exposure process. And the only thing that it's not with such big power as on the first example. Yeah. But about light power losses, we will talk a little bit later. For now, I just want you to understand this, how it works when you shooting without high-speed sync mode and with it. Yeah, just for those who want mm, to start shooting with high-speed sync mode, I have Godox triggers or flashes. Yeah, I will show you how to. It's really important because one day, not one, several days, there were situations where I just forget to turn on high-speed sync mode, and yeah, result wasn't fine. So yeah, you can see that just I'm pushing on one button, there's sync, yeah, and it turns on this mode, yeah. You need to turn on this mode on the trigger and as well on the flash, yeah. It's really important, otherwise camera will not recognize high-speed sync. Yeah, just. So yeah, I explained how high-speed sync works and try to deliver information in simple possible way as I can. You can ask questions later. Yeah, I will try to explain more deeply if you don't understand. And now let's talk about pros and cons of this shooting system. I will show you my work examples and will share some photography experience. So yeah, firstly, let's talk about advantages. So probably the main and the first most important advantage of high-speed sync mode is that it allows you to shoot with a wide open aperture in bright light situation, giving you nice shallow depth of field. Because you can keep speeding your shutter up to make the background go darker and darker without changing the aperture. Yeah, of course, this method uses a lot of photographers in other genres like portraits, wedding, car photography, and etc. Remember when I said the shutter speed doesn't affect when you're shooting with flash in normal mode? Uh, things are really changing when you're starting to shoot in high-speed sync mode. Now, instead of aperture, we can control our exposure with shutter. So we can make darken background by speeding up the shutter and adding some power to your flash. Uh, and this situation uses, like not situation, this benefit of high-speed sync uses really a lot of photographers, not only sport photographers. So yeah, this is a great example because Uh, you can see that this shot was taken with aperture 1.4, yeah, really bright frame. I was using Godox 1200 Pro as K-light, 600 Pro as counterlight, and also there was a small 300 Pro hidden between rocks to highlight the water splashes. Yeah, probably answering your question prematurely, this photo is combination of two shots. While biathlete was performing a trick, we were throwing a stone under him to gain a lot of splashes. But those splashes wasn't so ideal as I wanted, so we took the second shot as well for having a chance to get this perfect splash structure, sorry. So with that combination, photo is also good, but not ideal as I wanted. Actually, we will get back to this photo when I will speak about disadvantages of high-speed shooting. Yeah. The second very important advantage using high-speed sync mode in sports photography is obviously the shutter speed. Remember that we are shooting action, not portraits or not static objects. Our subject is always moving and sometimes really, really fast. So here's a little rule. Uh, the more faster moves athlete, the more power of flash you need to freeze him in air. As you can see, also one rule is really important. While you are shooting on wide angle lens and the athlete is close to your camera, obviously the movement will super fast. So you need to make a shutter faster and add some power to your flash. As you can see, in sports photography, we need to use high-speed sync mode even when it's dark or even at night, just because we need to avoid this motion blur effect, as I mentioned before. So high-speed sync is not only about sunny and bright days when we're doing action. It's also about like 70% of shootings. Previously, I told that there is really rare moments when I am shooting without high-speed sync. Yeah, because with shutter 250, you still can get those sharp images without motion blur, but the subject needs to be really, really far away from the camera. Like, well, yeah, like here in this situation on presentation. So he's far away from camera. I'm taking picture on telezoom lens, and if there is some motion blurs, yeah, also like here, we can always remove it in post. Also, when I'm shooting silhouettes, so I setting up flash behind the athlete somewhere far, far away, and athlete also is in front of camera but really far away. He is not moving some really fast, like he's in midair position, and like in midair position, there is a moment when he's like freezing for a microsecond. So you can catch this moment, and it will be good without motion blur. Okay, and now about not obvious, but still advantage of high-speed sync mode. How else we can keep the aperture open without increasing the shutter speed? Yeah, by using ND filters that makes darken the frame and prevent much light into the sensor. But this method works well and is cheaper than buying a flash system with a trigger. Unfortunately, this method has one serious con that will not allow you to use this method in sports photography, and this con is autofocus. Probably in bright sunny day it will works good, but in cloudy day or even at night, because of light will not reach the camera sensor, autofocus on the fast moving objects will failure a lot of time. So that's why I'm not using ND filters in sports photography. And probably it only applies to situations when you're shooting only sports. So yeah, this issue is applied only to sports action photography. Because if you're shooting static stuff, this method with ND filters works well. But remember that you will still have to uh, plus one glass in front of your lens. Uh, yeah, maybe it's good cover, but it's also cheap, and the filters are not qualitative. So you need to buy a good one. Otherwise, you will have issues with white balance and photo quality overall. So yeah, it's not obvious, but when you're shooting sport reportages, and the filters doesn't work at all. And let's talk about disadvantages of high-speed sync. Unfortunately, there are two of them. This photo actually is a backstage of the shot where MTB athlete was performing a bike trick on the river with splashes. This shot not staged. This guy literally was sitting there and realizing about what we still have to do after this photo session. uh, and what was waiting us after this photo shot was probably the most annoying disadvantage when you're using high-speed sync in sports action photography. Because the hardest part of the shot was to carry all the equipment with bike over the hills where the path to the location lays through bushes and weeds that have been overgrown. So it was sad to realize that now we have to pack up all the stuff and carry all the equipment back through all the three hills. So yeah, uh, as you can see on the photo, sorry, there's a lot of equipment. Two heavy suitcases, two backpacks, three tripods, and a bike. Yeah. And imagine to carry all this through hills and forest for about like 3, 4 kilometers or 5. So yeah, the most important con is that all equipment is quite heavy. You have a lot of things to carry. All these flashes with tripods are not just pocket stacks that you know can easily take out and shoot. And where you're carrying it once, it's absolutely not a problem. But when you're doing it over and over again for almost every photo session, yeah, it gets annoying. Especially because a lot of locations where I am shooting are not so easy to get by car. They often need to climb somewhere or walk several miles, and yeah, it's kind of difficult sometimes. That's why I'm trying to be physically prepared for this. As well as I'm traveling often to other countries. Sorry, on. Yeah, as I'm traveling often to other countries, I'm often taking all this stuff with me. So there's a lot of situations when you need to pay additional fee for more baggages. So yeah, the first disadvantage is sizes and equipment weight, especially when I'm setting up flashes somewhere on a tree or on a bridge, where hard to reach areas. Yep, and second con, actually, it's not disadvantage. It's just like technical feature of the high-speed sync. Because, for example, when you're shooting portraits, you can set up flashes quite close to the model. But in action, because of movement, you need often to put flashes somewhere far away. Otherwise, athlete just can break your stuff while he's performing a trick. So this technical feature means that you need a lot of flash power to use high speed sync mode in action photography. Also, the thing is that the higher shutter you have, the less light will gain your camera sensor. Remember that? So let me open previous slide. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So in high-speed sync mode, shutter now affects on exposure. Imagine when you're shooting at 1 2000 of a sec, how small this slit between two curtains is. It's very small, and now imagine how less light your sensor will get through this small slit, especially when this slit passes through in a microsecond. And obviously, you need a huge flash power to highlight the subject while the slit is in front of your sensor. Also, if you will use softboxes or umbrellas, it will lead us to even less light. That, of course, will affect exposure and the final shot. But cool thing is that nowadays cameras have a huge dynamic range, so any exposure you can compensate in post. It's really safe thing. Also, we can see there that it's need a more power to use high-speed sync mode, so it will also affect on our flash battery life. I can't say it precisely because it did not measure time, but in raw numbers, it drains something about like 20-30% faster from your battery. So yeah, it's about disadvantage with high-speed sync that yeah, it needs a lot of power. So yeah, in conclusion, I want to say like in action photography, you need to have high-speed sync mode. Sorry, like you can take shots without motion blur effect or without blackout without high-speed sync. Yeah, and it's all leads us to have a lot of equipment and powerful flashes, but not like very powerful. There's one more slide. You can, yeah. So yeah, of course, sometimes you don't need to use like everywhere AD 1200 Pro. I'm often working with a 300 Pro and it's perfectly fits for a lot of situations, especially when it's not bright sunny day. But yeah, in action and extreme sports, I'm using high-speed sync mode in something about, as I said, like 70-80% of situations. And as far as I know, my colleagues in action sports use this mode just same often. The thing is that now in our days we have such insane possibilities in photography. We can literally bring whole studio in any situations, in any conditions, like in the forest, under the rain, on the rooftop, somewhere in the no, I don't know, garage or desert, and we can take there a really cool shots, like mind-blowing shots. And I feel like in future, when flashes and cameras will get more powerful and more technology updated, we will have such amazing opportunity to create just mind-blowing content, especially with portraits and action photography shots. So we already have that opportunity. And this whole realization makes me really inspired. Okay, thank you for listening. And yeah, I'm sorry for my English mistakes. I'm working on it.
You're right, mate. All right, thank you, Volodya. Just one more point, guys. Because action photography outdoor is basically a flash mixing with a natural light. That's why you need high-speed sync, because you need to freeze the natural lights parts as well. But with studio photography, you don't necessarily need high-speed sync in order to freeze the actions. I think another photographer in the studio, specialized in the studio photography, who has already mentioned that. So there is a clear difference between the T.1 values and high-speed sync. It's totally different two genres. For your information. Now, I have a few questions for Volodya to start with. This is the question I want to know as well. It's like it's lots of gears, man.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, You know, there is time when I'm shooting for myself. I just like, oh, I've got an idea. Oh, bike athlete or skateboard athlete or parkour athlete. Uh, for example, John. Hey, John, I have an idea. We can shoot this photo. Let's take it. He's, yeah, let's go. So when I'm shooting for myself, I'm uh, often asking friends to help, or even not asking help. I am doing all by myself, carrying all bags and all this stuff. Sometimes athlete helps me, but of course, when there is like paid photo session, uh, commercial photo session, yeah, I better will pay for assistant, and he will do all the stuff. He will carry, he will set up flashes. Yeah, it's just saving your time, because you can spend whole day only for one photo if you have this time. But if you have only 1 or 2 hours of shooting, so yeah, better to have an assistant.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically I have when I need it, I have like 1 or 2 photo assistant, one for to set up flashes, and probably one for help with carrying. And nowadays, there's needed one more assistant to film backstages. So yeah. Unfortunately, no, I have only AD600 Pro, so yeah, I basically don't have experience with AD600 non-Pro. So maybe Aris can answer this question because
Hey,
yeah, he
Bruce,
probably
if
has.
you're using BD600, the only difference is BD600 doesn't support TTL, but it does support high-speed sync, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, you need because yeah, sometimes um, it depends. You need and no, because sometimes it depends on how far away from the flash you are. If signal from flash to trigger is good, then yeah, you will put high-speed sync mode on trigger, and it's automatically will enable through the signal on the flash. But if you will go far away from the flash, sometimes I'm shooting really far away and signal doesn't, uh, flash can will not burst. Yeah. So if you will turn high-speed sync mode on your trigger and flash is somewhere far away, it will not get that signal. So basically, I'm always trying to turn high-speed sync mode on the flash and on the trigger, and see that it works.
So it depends on the camera model too. On my A1, it automatically, I don't know, it works. But on some brands, it might not necessarily work. So best to double check on both the light side and the trigger side before you
Yeah,
start shooting. Here's a tricky question.
yeah. As I said before, yeah, it really affects, and it affects on like 30. No, yeah, kind of 30% flash power, because he need when he bursts, he do it a lot of time, and of course, uh, the top of the power like double size it or 1 to 3 part size it. So yeah, it's affects, but you can always like remove this disadvantage when you put flash closer to your subject or object.
Okay.
About shots, yeah, that's tricky question because do you remember previous slideshow? Yeah, when I showing this shot where athlete was performing trick on the river with splashes. So yeah, this shot we literally were doing for 7 hours. So one shot for several hours. But if you're asking about attempts, so yeah, there are sometimes a lot of attempts because mm, if you're doing staged photo and you have a lot of time, so you have like space for mistakes. You can do shots, set up some camera or flash uh, differently and take shots again and again set up, again take shots. So you have time to do this. When you, of course, working in commercial or in reportage shootings, uh, you need to like feel through your experience. So it's that moment when experience helps you and you can set all things from the first or second time and do successful shots already like on the second time, on the first time. And about batteries, actually,
Sorry.
okay, but I will answer,
Yeah.
yeah. About
Sorry,
batteries,
I jump ahead. Yeah, I'll go
it's
back
okay,
to
yeah.
that question.
I will just answer, yeah, about batteries, I remember. About batteries, ID 300 Pro, when I was shooting with them, uh, there were situations when batteries were uncharged. So yeah, if you're shooting like in 3 or 4 hours in a row and using flash on its full power and especially on high speed sync, uh, yeah, 3 hours about that they will after 3 hours they will uncharge. With ID 600 Pro and 1200 Pro, uh, there were rare moments when battery were uncharged, especially 1200 Pro. It's like my favorite flash. It's powerful, of course, and its battery life it's very impressive. Like uh, in whole my experience of shooting with this flash, never this flash was uncharged. Uncharged, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yes, it's gonna be available on YouTube soon as we finish.
Yeah, yeah. I love you're really cool person that you asked this question. So yeah, I really love this question. Uh, I opened like this trick not so far ago that you can use softbox with high-speed sync in high-speed sync mode, but yeah, of course, you need a lot of power. As I said in presentation, if you use high-speed sync mode, it drains flash power, light power, and if you will attach softbox and umbrellas, it also will drain light power. So in combination with high-speed sync mode and softboxes, it drains, I think, about not 30, already 50 maybe percent of power, maybe 40, 50. So yeah, but when you use softboxes and umbrellas, especially in action and extreme sports photography, where many of shots are with raw light, but you doing this shot with like soft light, with soft boxes, it's just next level of action photography. I don't know. It looks very, very like more perfect and softer and result is a lot qualitative. So if you have possibility to attach softbox, uh, so yeah, do it because it's very depends on quality and will uh, do your shot to the next level. Mm, what means in low light, like at night and dark environment? Yeah, I think. Mhm. Uh, the most common not mistake, like the most common issue when you're shooting in the dark is that when you need to keep background of your subject or object visible. So in this situation, you need really to high up the ISO. Yeah, so ISO will lights and highlight background, probably night city if you're doing shooting in front of city. Yeah, and you by with the ISO you highlighting background, but with the flash lowering power of flash, you will take less overexposed subject in front of this background. So this is maybe the most common problem when you're shooting at night. But if you don't need background, it's not a problem because flashes works perfectly. And what I love that in the night you don't need to put your flash on full power. Absolutely not, because you don't need to highlight so much subject. He will always be highlighted.
Yeah. So Bruce, really, you need to. I think you need to clarify your question a bit. But if you are thinking about autofocus and all that kind of issue, you can always turn the modeling lights on, right? AD 1200 Pro has 40 watts of modeling lights, and I think AD 300 Pro has 12 watts of modeling light, which really helps your autofocus in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that pretty much summarize all of our questions. If there's no further question, I want to thank um, Volodya for your time, and it was a beautiful presentation. And yeah, I love your knowledge about high speed sync and how you use it to mix with natural
Thank
lights
you.
to freestyle actions. And you guys, you please do visit his amazing and very unique photographers. Please do visit his Instagram and his Instagram handles, which is right on the video, which is Action Photographer. And besides, high speed lighting, and you will see how he styles. How he style his models, as well as how he uses little prop. I love the way he's using a little chain to have this spiral sort of leading line towards the main subject. So the way he frames his subjects is amazing, guys. He has lots of BTS videos on his Instagram too. So if you guys like action photography, go there and check him out. And thank you again, Volodya, for your
Mm.
amazing
Yeah, one
presentation.
moment. Also,
Yeah.
guys, I'm, as you already heard, I'm not perfect in English with speech, but you can always ask me a question on Instagram or Facebook. I will answer more detailed answers. So yeah,
Yeah. Thank you, Volodya. You are
thank you, thank you.
you're being so nice. All right, guys, this is your Mad Aristotle. I will see you until next time. Ciao soon.
Have a nice
Bye.
day. Goodbye.